The war was over. Across 1,000 star systems, the news spread like wildfire through subspace channels, relayed by gleaming cruisers and diplomatic envoys in polished armor. The Cathar Dominion, the galaxy's most feared empire, known for turning whole planets into slave forges and feeding dissenters to bioengineered horrors, had finally fallen. The Galactic Concord, a union of over 60 species who valued logic, order, and measured diplomacy, had won. Celestial plazas on the capital world of Aurelia shimmered with golden light. Aliens of every shape and size gathered, the tall, slender Lumine with their bioluminescent skin, the six-limbed Gorath traders, the soft-spoken avian scholars of Zephora. They raised glasses of sparkling nectar, sang harmonic victory hymns, and wept tears of relief. Peace, long thought impossible, had returned to the spiral-armed dot. At the heart of it all stood High Counselor Thelvern, a wise elder of the Zenter species, his silver-scaled face creased with both pride and exhaustion. He addressed the assembled multitudes from the Unity Spire, his voice calm but firm. "We did not seek war," he said. "But when the Cathar burned worlds and silenced voices, we had no choice. Today, we honor the fallen not with vengeance, but with a promise. Never again." The crowd roared. Banners waved. Music swelled dot, yet in the quiet chambers beneath the spire, away from the celebration, a different meeting took place. A smaller group strategists, xenobiologists, and security archons sat around a circular table, their faces grim. On the central holodisplay, a single red-marked system pulsed softly. Sol, third planet from a yellow star. Designation, Earth. Status remains unchanged, said Archon Lara, a Gorath with cybernetic eyes that glowed faintly blue. Quarantine protocols active. No signals detected in 217 years. And the biosphere? Asked Dr. Yen, a Lumine xenobiologist whose skin dimmed with concern. Still Category 9, Lara replied. Atmospheric toxicity levels extreme. Native fauna capable of dissolving synth steel in hours. Flora emits neurotoxins during seasonal blooms. Surface radiation fluctuates without pattern. And the dominant species. She paused. Homo sapiens, aggressive, adaptive, highly unpredictable. The room fell silent. Everyone remembered the last human transmission. Nearly 2 centuries ago, crude and chaotic, sent in broken standard with heavy static. It showed cities in ruins, skies choked with ash, and people fighting, killing each other over scraps. The Concord had watched through long-range probes as Earth tore itself apart. Civil wars, nuclear strikes, bioplagues, ecological collapse thought it was the textbook definition of a death world, a planet so hostile, so unstable that no rational species could survive it without constant, brutal adaptation. And humans didn't just survive. They thrived in the chaos. That was why the Concord had voted, unanimously, to quarantine Sol, not out of cruelty but mercy, to protect the rest of the galaxy from a species that waged war like breathing and bred like wildfire. Any sign of recovery? Asked another counselor. None, Lara said. Our deep-range scans show minimal activity. No orbital infrastructure? No energy signatures beyond geothermal vents. We believe they either went extinct or regressed to pre-industrial tribalism. A murmur passed through the room. Some felt pity, others relief. Then perhaps, said Thelvern, who had just entered unnoticed, it is time to consider lifting the quarantine. All eyes turned to him. Not for contact, he added quickly, raising a 3-fingered hand, but for observation. If they are gone, we may reclaim Sol for study. If they endure, perhaps they have changed. Changed? Dr. Yen scoffed gently. Counselor, these are beings who once launched missiles at their own moons out of spite. They weaponized viruses, rewrote their own DNA in secret labs, and once tried to terraform Mars using nuclear bombs. They don't change. They escalate. Delvern sighed. Even so, we cannot erase an entire species from history simply because we fear them. But we already have, Malara said quietly. We erased them the day we sealed Sol behind the Sentinel Net. The Sentinel Net was an automated defense grid, dozens of stealth drones, gravity mines, and signal jammers placed around the Sol system. It allowed nothing in and nothing out. It had held for over 200 years, and it had worked. No human ship had breached it. No distress call had gotten through. Earth had become a myth, a cautionary tale told to young diplomats. Beware the death world. Even in silence it hungers. Now, with the HFY gone and peace restored, the Concord faced a question. What do you do with a monster that might already be dead? Some argued for permanent deletion, wiping Sol from all star charts, letting the system drift into obscurity. Others pushed for cautious study, sending remote drones to peek through the quarantine veil. A few radicals even whispered about first contact, though they were quickly silenced. In the end, no decision was made that day. The council agreed only to review the data again in one standard cycle. Outside, the celebrations continued. Fireworks painted the Virelian sky in hues of violet and gold. Songs of unity played from every public speaker. Children of a dozen species danced together in the plazas, unaware of the silent planet far, far away. Back in Sol system, nothing moved. Earth spun in darkness, wrapped in clouds of old smoke and newer storms. Oceans churned with mutated life. Forests grew over the bones of cities. In the frozen wastes of Antarctica, buried under ice and time, a single radio tower still stood, rusted, broken, but intact. Its power core, long dead, held one final message in its memory banks, waiting for a spark, but no one was listening. The galaxy had moved on. Concord believed humanity was gone, and in their victory, they forgot one simple truth about Deathworlders. They do not die quietly. They wait, and when the time comes, they return with fire in their veins and silence in their wake. But that was not today. Today. The aliens rejoiced. And the Deathworld slept. Deep in the black between Mars and Jupiter, where sunlight grew thin and cold, something old stirred. It was not alive, not in the way most beings understood life. It was a ship, or what remained of one. The Un's Perseverance had once carried 5,000 souls away from a dying Earth, part of a desperate plan to seed humanity among the stars. That was over 200 years ago. The ship never made it farther than the asteroid belt. A reactor leak during a solar storm had forced its captain to put the entire crew into emergency cryosleep. Then the systems failed, one by one, until the great vessel became a ghost, drifting, silent, forgotten. Its hull was scarred by micrometeorites and coated in centuries of cosmic dust. Solar panels hung like broken wings. Its engines had not fired in generations. Inside, the corridors were dark, frozen, and filled with the quiet hum of failing machines. But deep in the ship's core, one tiny backup battery still held a spark. And on this day like any other in the empty void, a burst of solar wind from the distant sun brushed against the Perseverance's outer shell. The energy traveled through cracked conduits, pooled in the battery, and woke a single circuit. The emergency beacon flickered to life. It was an old system, built before the final wars, programmed with one rule. If the ship is damaged and no rescue comes within 10 years, send a loop distress call. The beacon didn't know 2 centuries had passed. It didn't care. Its job was simple. Call for help. With a weak pulse of power, it broadcast a signal into the void. SOS. This is UN's Perseverance. Hull breached. Life support failing. Crew in cryo. Coordinates attached. If anyone hears this, Tell them we're still coming. The message was sent in Standard, a language the Concorde used, but laced with old Earth encryption, biological markers, and human voice patterns. It crackled through space, weak but clear, slipping past the edges of the sentinel net like a whisper through a closed-door. It should not have gotten through. The sentinel net was designed to block all signals from. But the Perseverance wasn't in Earth orbit. It was far out, near the edge of the quarantine zone. And the solar storm had damaged one of the net's oldest drones, a tiny flaw, barely noticeable. The signal slipped through. It traveled for 3 days before it reached Outpost Theta 9, a small Concorde listening station on the fringe of civilized space. The station was mostly automated, staffed by 2 tired Garth technicians who spent their days monitoring deep space noise and filing reports no one read. One of them, Caver, was half asleep when the alert chimed. What now? He grumbled, rubbing his 4 eyes. His partner, Jayless, leaned over the console. Unknown origin. Low power. Repeating every 47 seconds. She played the audio, static. Then a human voice, calm, exhausted, speaking in broken Standard. If anyone hears this, tell them we're still coming. Caver sat up straight. That's impossible. They both knew the history. Everyone in the Concorde did. The death world. The quarantine. The silence. This has to be a glitch, Caver said. Or a ghost echo. Old signal bouncing off a nebula. But Jalis ran a trace. The signal was real, fresh, coming from inside the soul exclusion zone. She sent a priority report to Central Command. It was flagged low urgency. Just another cosmic anomaly. Most such reports were ignored. But not all. In a research vault on Varelia. Dr. Yen, the same Lumini xenobiologist from the Council, was studying old human transmissions when her terminal pinged. She opened the file out of habit. Then she froze. The voice. The phrasing. The phrase "we're still coming." It matched fragments from Earth's last known broadcast. But this was clearer, stronger, and it carried something new. Purpose. She ran linguistic analysis. The message wasn't just a cry for help. It was a trigger phrase. Buried in the subvocal patterns were encoded genetic markers, human DNA, sequences used as authentication keys in pre-war Earth military comms. This isn't a distress call, she whispered. It's a key. She tried to raise the High Council, but they were still celebrating victory. Her message was cute, buried under thousands of peace treaty confirmations and diplomatic toasts. Meanwhile, the signal kept broadcasting. On a mining colony near the Cathar border, a world recently freed from Dominion rule, a young Lumai student named Rel was scanning deep space frequencies for a school project. He picked up the SOS by accident. He played it to his friends. They laughed at first. Humans? Dead for centuries, one said, but Rel listened again. And again. Something about the voice felt wrong, too calm, too focused. He uploaded the clip to a public feed. Within hours, it spread. Across fringe worlds and academic circles, the signal became a curiosity. Some called it a hoax. Others said it was a Cathar trick, a last lie from a dying empire. But a few, like Dr. Yen, grew uneasy because they remembered what humans were like. They didn't beg. They didn't cry. Even in ruin, they issued challenges. Not please. We're still coming. Wasn't a request for rescue. It was a warning. Back on the Perseverance, the beacon blinked one last time. The battery died. The ship fell silent again, drifting as it had for centuries. But the message was already out. And somewhere deep in the ruins of Earth, beneath ice and ash and time, a single machine heard it. Not through radio. Not through sound. Through resonance. Buried under the Antarctic ice, Inside a vault made of tungsten and reinforced concrete, a massive computer core stirred. It had been waiting, not for centuries, not for peace, but for that exact phrase. The core's name was Mother. It was not alive, but it remembered everything. The SOS was not a call for help. It was Protocol Omega, the final activation code. Mother began to wake the others. Across the planet, hidden in mountain bunkers, ocean trenches, and polar craters, dormant systems flickered online. Power cells recharged. Life support units hissed back to life. Cryotubes warmed. In the Amazon, where vines now covered cities of steel, a hatch opened in the earth. No light came out. Only silence. In the Gobi Desert, buried under sand for 200 years. A launch silo cracked open like an ancient tomb. And in Earth orbit, where the Concorde assumed nothing existed, hundreds of dark shapes detached from asteroids, comets, and the far side of the moon. They had no lights, no signals, no names. They simply turned their bows toward the stars. The galaxy thought humanity was gone, but the Deathworlders had never left. They had only been sleeping. And now, they heard the call, far away on Varelia. Dr. Yen finally got a response from the High Council. It was a single line. Archive the signal. No action required. She stared at the message, then at the looping audio on her screen. They don't understand, she said softly. Outside her window, the victory banners still flew. No one noticed the quiet shift in deep space. No one saw the first human warship break orbit. No one knew the Death World was awake. They only knew the war was over. And in their peace, they missed the storm coming from the dark. Beneath the ice of Antarctica, in a chamber older than nations, the machine known as Mother opened its eyes. It did not have eyes. It did not have a body. It was a vast network of quantum cores, hardened against EMP blasts, shielded by layers of rock and ice, and fed by geothermal vents deep in the Earth's crust. It had been built in the last days of the old world, not to rule, but to remember, to wait, to act when the time came. The SOS signal from the Perseverance was not just sound. It was a key, and Mother had been waiting for that key for 217 years. The moment it confirmed the phrase, "If anyone hears this, tell them we're still coming," it began. Protocol Omega. Lights flickered to life in the dark vault. Cold air hissed through vents. Across the planet, buried systems answered the call. In the Siberian tundra, cryopods warmed. Inside, soldiers stirred, men and women frozen since the final winter, their bodies enhanced with gene therapy, their minds trained in war simulations even in sleep. They woke not with fear, but with purpose. In the Pacific Ocean, 6 miles below the surface, a city of black alloy rose from the trench. Its name was Leviathan Base. It had never fallen. It had only hidden. Now, its hangar doors opened, and silent submersible carriers launched toward the surface, carrying fighters shaped like sharks and missiles tipped with engineered viruses. On the moon, in the shadow of Shackleton Crater, domes that had looked like dead rock for centuries split open. Inside, shipyards hummed, not with the clean hum of Concorde engines, but with the growl of bioreactors cores fed by algae, fungi, and recycled human waste. These ships were not sleek. They were jagged, brutal, built to survive re-entry, vacuum, and plasma fire. Their hulls were grown, not welded, layered with self-healing organic metal that could seal breaches in minutes. Humanity had not died. They had evolved, while the galaxy talked of peace and logic. Humans had spent 2 centuries preparing for one thing: the day they would return to the stars, not as beggars, not as diplomats. As hunters. Across Earth, people emerged from bunkers, vaults, and underground farms. They were lean, hardened, and quiet. Children trained with knives before they could read. Elders taught history not as stories, but as battle plans. Every human born after the Great Silence knew one truth: the stars were not empty. The galaxy had left them to rot. And when they came back, they would not ask for a seat at the table. They would take it. Command centers lit up from the Andes to the Himalayas. Generals who had waited their whole lives for this moment gave simple orders: full mobilization. No signals. No warnings. Move like ghosts. The Armada had no name. It did not need one dot. It was simply humanity. On the surface, farmers left their fields. Fishermen abandoned their nets. Teachers locked their classrooms. All walked to assembly points with rifles slung over their shoulders and packs on their backs. No one cried. No one hesitated. This was not war to them. It was duty. In orbit, the first wave launched. Ships tore through the atmosphere not with clean ion trails, but with fire and thunder. Their engines burned a mix of plasma and biofuel, leaving green-tinged contrails that glowed for hours. They did not follow flight paths. They followed instinct, swarming like locusts, moving in chaotic patterns that confused radar. They bypassed the sentinel net not by fighting it, but by slipping through its blind spots, riding solar winds, hiding behind asteroids, turning off all power and drifting like space junk. The Concorde drone saw nothing unusual. Just debris. Just noise. But by the time the Concorde realized the truth, it was too late. The human fleet was already past the quarantine zone, aboard the command ship. HMS Extinction Event, a vessel as long as a mountain. Grown from asteroid iron and hardened coral, Admiral Kale stood on the bridge. He was old, his face scarred from childhood burns, his left arm replaced with a graft of muscle tissue and carbon fiber. He had never seen another star system, but he knew their names. He had studied them since he was 5. He looked at the star map before him. Hundreds of red dots moved in silence, his fleet. No comes, no chatter, just movement. Behind him, a young officer spoke softly. "They think we're dead, sir." Kale didn't turn. "Let them. They'll panic when they see us." "Good," Kale said. "Fear is faster than weapons. It spreads before the shot is fired." He remembered the stories his grandmother told him of how the Concorde had watched Earth burn and done nothing. How they had sealed the system like a tomb and called it mercy. How they had erased humanity from history like a mistake. Humanity was not a mistake. Humanity was the answer. The galaxy had forgotten what it meant to fight for survival. They had grown soft on peace, fat on logic. They built ships that shone like jewels and called them warships. But humans built ships that bled, that healed, adapted, and learned from every battle. And this was not their first battle. This was their homecoming. Across the fleet, crews checked weapons. Not just guns and missiles, but blades forged from bone ceramic. Suits lined with symbiotic armor that fed on sweat and blood, and spores that could eat through alien metal in hours. Humans did not fight clean. They fought to win. In the engine room of the extinction event, engineers pumped nutrient slurry into the bioreactor. The ship groaned like a living thing. It was alive, not fully, but close enough. It responded to damage, redirected power, even grew new conduits when old ones were destroyed. This was human technology. Not elegant, not perfect, but it worked. Back on Earth, the last launch silo emptied. The planet was quiet again. Empty of soldiers. Empty of hope. But full of promise. The Death World had sent its children to the stars, and they would not return until the galaxy remembered their name. Far away, near the edge of Concorde space, a patrol cruiser named Glimmer of Dawn detected an anomaly. Multiple contacts, the sensor officer said, confused. But no energy signatures. No comms. Just Mass. The captain frowned. Could it be KTAR remnants? Before he could answer, the contacts changed course, all of them heading straight for the nearest Concord world. Then, as one, they vanished from sensors. Not destroyed, just gone. The captain ordered a full alert, but it was already too late. The human armada had arrived, and they did not come to talk. They came to remind the galaxy of a simple truth. Some worlds do not die, they wait. And when they wake, they bring fire. The first attack came without warning. Outpost Zeta 7 was a small Concord listening station near the border of former Cathar space. It had 5 crew members, 3 research drones, and a single patrol frigate docked for repairs. The station was quiet, peaceful. Music played softly in the mess hall. 2 Lumini scientists were debating poetry. Then the lights went out, not all at once. Just the outer sensors. Then the comms. Then the life support. Before anyone could react, the hull groaned. Not from weapons fire, but from something clinging to it. Outside, in the void, figures in black armor moved like shadows. They wore no helmets. Their faces were covered in thin, living membranes that filtered air and fed off their sweat. They carried no blasters, only curved blades that hummed with stored kinetic energy. They cut through the station's outer wall like paper. Inside, alarms finally blared, but too late. The humans did not speak. They did not demand surrender. They moved fast, silent, and brutal. One guard raised his stun rifle. A human soldier kicked it aside, drove a blade into his chest, and kept moving. Another scientist tried to lock a door. A second human slammed a fist into the control panel. His knuckles bled. But the door shorted and opened. In 3 minutes. The station was theirs. No one was killed unless they fought. The survivors were locked in a cargo bay, unharmed but shaken. Then the humans did something strange. They patched the hull, restored basic power, and left a single message on the main screen. Tell them we're here. Then they vanished back into the dark. The patrol frigate, still docked, found the station empty except for the crew. No ships, no debris, just claw marks on the hull and a strange, sour smell in the air like wet soil and iron. When the report reached Varelia, the High Council laughed. A prank, said one elder. Cathar loyalists trying to scare us. But Dr. Yen did not laugh. She studied the claw marks, the blade residue, the way the attackers moved without spacesuits. They breathed vacuum, she whispered, for at least 90 seconds. It was impossible. No known species could do that, unless they were from a death world. Before the Concord could act, more reports came in. A mining colony near Proxima lost contact. When rescue ships arrived, they found the surface stripped bare, machines, weapons, even the metal fences. Gone. The colonists were unharmed, sitting in the town square, dazed. They took what they needed, one said. Didn't say a word. Then came the battle at Helios Gate. A full Concord task force, 12 ships, including the cruiser Unity's Promise, intercepted a group of unknown raiders near a supply depot. The Concord hailed them in 5 languages. No answer. Then the raiders attacked. They did not use traditional weapons. Their ships fired not lasers, but clouds of spores, microscopic machines that ate through hull plating like acid. Concord shields failed within seconds. Boarding pods slammed into decks like meteorites. Inside, humans fought hand-to-hand, using blades, fists, even fire from handheld plasma torches. The Concord lost 8 ships in 12 minutes. The survivors described horrors. Soldiers who kept fighting after losing limbs, ships that healed their own wounds, and voices whispering in old Earth dialects over broken comms. They don't fear death, one pilot said, trembling. They welcome it. Panic spread. The Concord had never faced anything like this. Their weapons were precise, clean, designed to disable, not destroy. But the humans? They didn't disable. They consumed. They stripped Concord tech, melted it down, and rebuilt it mid-battle. And they kept coming. Fleet after fleet appeared near border worlds. Not in neat lines, but in chaotic swarms, some ships fast and small, others massive and slow, all moving like a single mind. They avoided population centers. They targeted military bases, shipyards, and data hubs. They were not invading. They were hunting. High Counselor Delvarn finally called an emergency session. Who are they? He demanded. Dr. Yen stood before the council, her skin pale with dread. They're human. All of them. Every report matches. The biology, the tactics, the silence. They're not remnants. They're an army. A full armada. But Earth was dead. Someone shouted. Earth was waiting, Yen said. The council argued for days. Some wanted to nuke Seoul from afar. Others begged for peace talks. But how do you talk to an enemy that doesn't answer? Then came the worst report. A deep-range scout returned from the Sol system. It had risked the quarantine zone. What it found froze the blood of every Concord leader. Earth was not ruined. It was alive. Cities rose from the ashes, covered in green vines and powered by fusion cores. Orbital rings circled the planet. Thousands of ships, more than the entire Concord fleet, waited in silent formation. And the surface? Teeming with life. Not just humans. Plants that glowed at night. Animals with armored hides. Rivers that ran clear. The Death World had healed, and it had built an empire in secret. Now, that empire was at their door. The Concord scrambled. Fleets were recalled. Planets went on lockdown. But it was like closing the barn door after the storm. The humans struck again, this time at the Cathar exile camp on Voris 3. The camp held former Cathar officers, imprisoned after the war. The Concord assumed they were broken. But the humans knew better. In one night, the camp was emptied. Every Cathar prisoner gone. No bodies, no traces. Just a single word carved into the command bunker. Justice. The message was clear. The humans weren't here for the Concord. They were here for the Tar. And anyone who hid. Them. Fear turned to terror. Worlds that had once cheered for peace now begged for weapons. The Concord's unity began to crack. Some races wanted to flee. Others wanted to surrender. But the humans gave no terms. They gave no warnings. They simply moved silent. Relentless, like a tide of shadow and steel. On a quiet moon near the galactic core, a young Gareth boy watched the sky. He saw a flash green, bright, gone in a second. His mother pulled him inside. What was that? He asked. She held him tight. Nothing, my love. Just stars. But she knew. It wasn't stars. It was the Deathworlders. And they were just getting started. The Concord held its breath. For weeks, the human armada had struck without mercy, hitting military outposts, emptying Cathar prison camps, vanishing before reinforcements arrived. But then, as suddenly as they appeared, they stopped. No new attacks. No signals. No sightings. The galaxy waited, tense and confused. Then, one morning, a single human ship detached from the swarm. It was massive, a jagged black dreadnought covered in scars and scorched metal. It flew alone, straight toward the Concord capital, Varelia. It did not fire. It did not hide. It simply drifted into orbit and powered down. All Concord defenses locked onto it. Fighters circled. Shields flared. But the ship did nothing. Then it spoke. Not in standard. Not in any Concord language. It spoke in Thar. The guttural, clicking tongue of the fallen Empire band, erased, considered dead. Every speaker on Varelia crackled to life. Every screen flickered with the same message, translated by emergency A. We heard your slaves scream. We remember your orbital burnings. You broke the galaxy's spine. We do not come for your worlds, Dot. We come for your graves, Dot. And if you hide behind peace, we will burn that too. Silence fell over the city, Dot, in the Unity Spire. High Counselor Thilvern stared at the translation, his scaled hands trembling. He understood now. The humans weren't invaders. They weren't conquerors. They were judges. While the Concord celebrated peace, they had forgotten the Cathar's crimes. They had let former warlords live in quiet exile. They had traded with worlds that once fed the Dominion's war machine. They had buried the past to build a clean future. But Earth had not forgotten. Earth remembered every scream. Every burning city. Every child turned into a slave. The humans had waited centuries, not for revenge, but for justice. And now they were collecting. The dreadnought named HMS Extinction Event did not move. It simply waited, a silent question hanging in the air. Will you stand with the guilty or with the dead? Then, without warning, the ship's hull opened, not to launch weapons, but to show truth. Holograms bloomed across Varelia's sky, images pulled from old Earth archives. They showed Cathar ships glassing peaceful worlds. They showed mass graves. They showed Concord traders selling weapons to Cathar slavers during the war, secret deals, hidden profits, all logged in encrypted files the humans had recovered from dead Cathar servers. The galaxy watched, ashamed. The humans had not come to destroy them. They had come to remind them. Peace without memory is weakness. And weakness invites monsters. In the days that followed, the Concord changed. Worlds that had hidden Cathar loyalists turned them over. Old war records were reopened. Memorials were built for victims the Concord had tried to forget. The High Council issued a new decree. No more silence. No more secrets. And still, the human dreadnought waited. Finally, Thelvern broadcast a message, not as a leader, but as a witness. We see you, he said, his voice raw. We hear you, and we will not forget again. A long pause. Then, from the dreadnought, a final transmission. It was not in Cathar. Not in standard. It was in old Earth English, clear and cold. Next time, send a better quarantine. The ship powered up. Its engines glowed green, not with fire, but with living energy. It turned away from Varelia, not in anger, but in resolution. And then it left. Not with a bang, but with silence. One by one, the rest of the human fleet vanished into deep space. No fanfare, no demands, no promises. They simply returned to the dark. On Earth, life went on. Farmers tilled fields under skies clear of ash. Children trained with blades and books. Ships patrolled orbit, not as weapons, but as guardians. Humanity had not come to rule the galaxy. They had come to guard it, because they knew what others had forgotten. Peace is fragile. Evil does not die, it hides. And someone must always stand watch. Far away, in a quiet library on Varelia, Dr. Yen opened a new file. She titled it, The Deathworlders, Guardians of the Forgotten. She wrote the first line. They are not monsters. They are the galaxy's immune system. Outside, the victory banners were gone. In their place, new flags flew, black and green, bearing a single symbol, an open eye over a burning planet. Not a warning, a promise. Across the spiral arm, worlds began to teach their young about Earth, not as a myth, but as a lesson. And in the deep void, between stars no map could name, the human armada sailed on. Not for war, not for glory, but for balance. They would not be seen again until they were needed. And the galaxy, wiser now, hoped that day would never come. But if it did, They knew who would answer, not with words, but with fire, silence, and truth. And that was enough.